Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live. Talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynncullenshow@gmail.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Hey, how you doing? Hang on, I'm actually in transit. Oof, that's me sitting down. Oof, hello. It's March 28th. It's a Tuesday, and Susan's with us. Hi.
Hi. I'm already in situ, so I don't have to make any noises getting there.
Oh, okay. I realized that I had a door slightly ajar, and there's noise outside, and I was trying to get it shut. Blah, blah, blah. Woof. Anyway, yeah, you're in sit. That's interesting you said in situ, because that was in a crossword puzzle I was doing the other day.
Really?
Yeah, the SITU part.
Right.
Yeah. Why is that? Is it Latin? Must be Latin, right?
Yeah, sure.
I know.
It means
all right.
I'm right here.
Well, I'm kind of here, I think. So, oh dear, I don't know. Suze, there's so much crap here in front of me, and I'm not sure where to start.
Well, I actually want to talk about something that I told you I didn't want to talk about because there's this ridiculous.
What?
This terrible shooting in Tennessee.
Yes, yeah. Okay.
That was
issues for that too.
Yeah, that was committed by someone who identifies as transgender, but the sheriff, in reporting it, kept referring to him as a transgendered woman. That's it. He was exactly wrong.
She was
biologically a woman,
right?
Transitioning to male. And which was the exact opposite of what he was saying, right?
Well, because he, like a million other people,
doesn't get it. I don't blame him,
and I don't blame him either. Because I always, every time I bump into him,
you have to think.
So I appreciate that. The thing is, pronouns aside, the killer was still using a female name.
Yeah.
Which would throw you off. I mean, I'm sorry. I see, what was her? I'm sorry, her. I'm going to call, fuck her, he, it. First of all, fuck her, he, it. I don't give a shit about her, he, its pronouns. The fucking killer. Sorry. I'm just sorry, but.
Well, yeah, the least interesting thing about any of this is the gender identity, but
it'll be the thing that people go on.
Listen, of course, and transgender people everywhere are holding their heads and going, we don't need this.
We needed this.
Just like whatever group that the awful person belongs to does each time. But it is going to put a slant on this and be looked at from every which way, from motive to whether hormones played a part, the whole thing.
Yeah, maybe the killer.
Maybe the killer was taking testosterone. I don't know.
Getting testosterone, right, to do the transition, and the testosterone, is part of the picture. It's a killer.
Right.
Calling it.
Why are we looking for reasons? I mean, I see one big reason, and the reason is the proliferation of guns and ammo in this country.
Legal. And she had all these. I'm sorry.
He had all these.
He fuck him. He had all these things. 2 assault rifles and a gun, and all legally gotten, because this is America, where we care about gun ownership more than our children. And
where mowing down our children is becoming somewhat of a sport for the other young people in our country. And I'm sorry, something needs to be done. I'm sorry. I'm amazed that there's a whole group of people in this country that really don't think that they should do anything.
Well, here's what I was wondering. I'm wondering a lot of things about this. One, because this was a Christian school that he attended, right?
Right.
He attended as a girl, and maybe a very, mixed up, conflicted, whatever. And was maybe that Christian school was particular, maybe because some churches have a lot of trouble with sexual orientation and identity. Maybe that explains why the killer goes back to that Christian place to do.
Yeah, maybe, but the killer also had several other places identified, and this one was just easier. It had less security.
Oh, okay.
So we can make up whatever scenarios. I'm going to go back to the basic issue. I don't really care what the motivation is. Motivation doesn't matter if the means don't exist.
Well, I have two thoughts. We, and I'm speaking of us all. This, by the way, by different counts are going on based on whatever. But the New York Times says this was the 130th mass shooting in the United States this year, and we're not out of month 3. Okay.
So I don't really want to hear how dangerous Chicago is, because there ain't no place on the face of this country that isn't just as dangerous. Any block, any house, any town, anywhere. And it's because of what was a common denominator is the ready availability of them. And that anyone can still suggest that the answer to this is access to more of the same is, we've talked about the fact that a whole bunch of the country is deranged. And this is just another instance of that absolute refusal to deal with the reality. No, they just want their guns and their right to take up arms against whomever they see fit, whenever. So we're really arguing the wrong argument with them. They want this.
Well, they see it as this is their definition of liberty. Their right to do what they want to do, and they've got that Second Amendment thing to glom onto. I came upon this quote that I think exposes how they're so they don't get what liberty is. If the first thing about liberty is, you can't take my guns from me. I'm an American. I have liberty. Here's a guy named, he's an essayist, William Hazlitt said, the love of liberty is the love of others. The love of power is the love of ourselves. They don't understand what liberty is. They do understand what power is.
No, or the responsibilities of liberty.
And the other thing, did you happen to see, because it went viral, the woman, why don't I have it here? The woman who knows this kind of gun trauma.
Oh, the Highland Park survivor.
The Highland Park mother, Highland Park, Illinois. Not that anyone should necessarily remember, but Highland Park, Illinois had a mass shooting at a 4th of July parade or something. And this woman was there with her, 6-year-old son, and the guns started up and she went racing because she had grabbed her kid. And she says he's been traumatized since. She's become extremely active in the anti-gun movement. And because that movement, is all over the country, people who have personally suffered from this insanity, she made friends with another woman who had a son killed in the Waffle House shooting in Tennessee. Do you remember that one?
No, that slipped into a river of blood of things that I have no memory of.
So the woman from Illinois who survived the Highland Park 4th of July shooting happens to have family in Nashville. She was down there visiting, and she was on her way to meet the woman that she's friends with who lost a son in the Waffle House. I don't know that they've ever physically met. They were meeting for lunch. I suspect not in a Waffle House. And that woman calls her and said she was terrified because there's a shooting and it was this shooting. And the woman from Highland Park ends up getting in front of a microphone where all the media was for, I guess, the
sheriff was giving his news conference.
She uninvited gets in there and gave such a powerful speech. And the report I read said that when she started talking, it was obvious she hadn't been invited, and that some of the media, the TV turned off. They weren't going to give her the time. What they did by doing that is missing the most important thing that was said. And it was just brilliant. It was to the point and not hysterical, just to the point, enraged. And she said this really stuck with me. Only in America, she was talking about just herself and her friend, and that day, only in America can you survive a mass shooting and go and make a friend who is the victim of a mass shooting, and then go to meet that friend for lunch and end up in the middle of another mass shooting. Yeah.
Yep. It's common.
So what I want,
And here's the other thing. The vast majority of the people in this country agree with us. And we are held hostage, as usual, by this bunch of cultist fascists. It's just nonsense.
But this is what brings me to exactly. You think, and I think you're right, without a doubt, that the majority of Americans are so sick of this. I also think the majority of Americans are simply paralyzed. We don't know what to do. We have been against this for so long, and our leaders, the people we elect, don't do shit. We have a Supreme Court that will block a lot of efforts to get this done. So we feel powerless. But I've been thinking about the people, those pictures we've been seeing in Israel.
Yeah.
And all it would take is for us to do what the Israelis have done, because that also is the majority of that country in the streets, a country whose government has been taken over by the same crazed, right-wing, nationalistic, racist son of a bitches. So why? What is wrong with us that we can't somehow summon? We can stop it if we cared.
Yeah,
we could
I agree.
Stop it. Every union in this country could go on strike. Every school, every university should shut down. Every one of us should be in the streets. And you tell me if we wouldn't have the staying power of the Israelis, do that as long as it takes, that we couldn't stop this insanity. So I don't want to hear about powerlessness. We do have the power. We lack the will.
Yeah.
And
each of us has the power.
Each of it. But, everybody's sitting around.
Well, and if each of us waits for somebody else to be the first one to stand up, no one stands up. So we have to remember that it's always nice to have other people agreeing with us and working with us. But nobody, there's always the first person and the second person and the third person. And we all have to independently be willing to take the decision that we will reclaim our country on all these different levels. That hate doesn't get to win. That the killing and murder don't get to win.
So
and we have to stop being so astonished that we have to actually say these things.
I can't believe that we just still act again like it's just, there's the usual, and now we'll find out, the victim's name. It doesn't make a damn bit of difference. It doesn't. If Sandy Hook didn't galvanize, if Uvalde didn't galvanize us, what the fuck does it take for Americans, and I'm talking about every goddamn one of us, for Americans to get off their duffs and stay and say enough?
Well, apparently all it does is make us feel bad about ourselves, because the Wall Street Journal did this poll that found that 25%, that 25%, I think, of Democrats do not consider themselves patriotic. But I think that's because they equate it with being a right wing. It's like
the right wing has taken the
right. It's why my son started hanging the flag again. He said, we got to take it back.
Yeah, but he does that at the risk of every person walking by assuming he's a Trump voter.
Well, he hangs it next to a rainbow flag. That usually helps.
Okay. That's the way to do it. Isn't that amazing? No, I remember I have a friend who years and years ago was upset about this and about all the Republicans always wearing that flag pin and stuff. And she said, I'm wearing a flag pin. I'm good. They cannot abscond with the flag.
But they did. They did, and they do, and they even changed the Democrats' name. Yes. I mean, we are not, and I'm going back. I mean, I never actually stopped. I always called the Democratic
Well, of course,
Party.
We don't call ourselves the Democrat Party. That's them. And the media don't either. Usually, every once in a while, I see some idiot reporter in print use that. That's not the name of the party. As if they called the Republicans the Republic Party.
Oh, we could just call them the party of assholes.
Well, that's more to the point. So anyway, I have to tell you, yeah. I don't know. Well, there'll be another one today. Don't worry. Or God, maybe tomorrow. Don't worry. We'll have this number well into the thousands before September. Mass shootings in America.
The fact of the matter is we get more upset about the weather.
Yeah, this country is sick.
What are we going to do about that tornado that killed all those people? Well, that's very sad. There's absolutely nothing you can do about the damn tornado. There is something you could do about guns. Of course, there's something you could do about tornadoes, too. We could stop changing the weather patterns, but,
We can also obviously help the victims of those natural disasters, those poor people.
You know what's awful?
And I said, what you tell me, Susan, I know here's my awful thing. How is it that even tornadoes
pick the poorest people to torture?
To head straight for where black poor people live and take what little they've got and destroy it, including their lives.
I was thinking the same thing as I was watching it. I mean, and it wasn't like, it was just a trailer park. I mean, anything this was a 54-mile long, very powerful thing that took out buildings, picked up semis. It didn't matter what you were in. It was flattened.
No.
And I had the same thought. How even the weather? Really?
Even the weather. Well, okay. So there's that. Was that one of the subjects we said last night we didn't want to talk about? Because
we had the funniest conversation last night that ended up in all the things that we agreed we were not going to speak about. We've hit all but one, and I refused. One. Yeah, we aren't doing that.
Let's not do it. Although I'm thinking of you, Suze. Yeah.
Just so you know, that one would be our health. We aren't going to have an organ recital. No organ recitals.
That was a medical one. Although, speaking of medical things, this came out of the science section today. And this is something that I've often wondered about. As an older person living alone, who has to have procedures done that require, sedation. And, if you have to do that, they tell you, they won't even let you in to register until you give them the name and number of the person who dropped you off and who's picking you up. And if you don't have somebody to do that, you don't have the procedure. And this is true all over the country. And it's not enough to say, I'll call a taxi.
That's not good enough, but it is good enough to call a service, which is also a stranger to take you, which and
cost you it costs you more.
Yeah,
there's a service, but there are also. So the New York Times did this piece today about this guy. He's a lawyer, a former lawyer. He's 72. He needs a second cataract surgery. He needs a colonoscopy. He needs some to have some sort of minor surgery to remove what looks like potential cancer on his skin, and he can't. He lives, he's divorced. He lives alone. The only relative he had has left. He lives in Manhattan. And he doesn't have, this is what's sad, he doesn't have friends. He doesn't have a friend he can ask. And so he says he's offered maintenance workers in his apartment $100 to pick him up. And he says, and when I couldn't tell them specifically what time they would have to be there, that they sort of have to be, they lost interest. He said, you cannot, there are even, he had trouble actually scheduling with some other supposedly, home care places. And, I was thinking that because every time I actually had this conversation with my doctor, who's yelling at me for not having one of those procedures, and I said, each of my children moved, almost an hour away. It's not like I can say, hey, and they work. It's not like I can, and no, I don't have anybody else. And you're determining that this stranger is better than that stranger seems absolute nonsense to me. You either trust me to arrange for it or, let me sign a release. Well, what's happening is people are going without procedures they do. Right. Why can't we sign a release? You tell me. Why can't there be a release sign? Because this has got to be getting in the way for a lot of people. And I have to tell you that, obviously I have friends, but you don't ask just any friend to do that. That's a big ask. And you don't, and you can't continually ask the same people, Exactly right. Hey, will you, and it's often, will you pick me up at 6 o'clock in the morning and take me there, and then often sit there for hours on end, or, be available when I call you, who knows when, that kind of thing. And there are plenty of people who don't have people who can do that. And I think that's on the medical community. Yeah, and it's not, and again, it's not because you're so alone that there's nobody in your life, but you might not have people available to do that kind of service for you. Exactly right. Exactly right. Okay, so what else? We're moving on, Suze. Okay. Okay. Did you see the video of the 100-year-old woman speaking at a school board meeting in Florida. It's wonderful. God bless her.
I think my eye glanced by it. Please tell me the story.
Well, the story is simply she's 100 years old, and she, was responding to the fact that a whole bunch of something like 40 books or 50 books had been removed from the shelves of the local school, and she, 100 years old, showed up. And man, she was given 1 minute to speak and she blew them away. And she specifically talked about Nazis. And she talked about Nazis because they killed her husband, 26-year-old husband in World War II. Right after he deployed, and she was pregnant with their child. And she said she always knew what he was fighting for, and she always knew what he was fighting against. And then she goes on to talk about it's the Nazis that burned books. It's the same as banning books. And we have the freedom. He died for the freedom to read what you choose to read and to not read what you don't want to read, but not to get in somebody else's way about it. She was remarkable. She even, last year, during the pandemic, made a quilt, which some guy behind her held up. And it's a quilt with banned books on it. 99.
Good for her.
Good for her. Meanwhile, back in Florida, publishers of a textbook, this is just one book, used in Florida schools have capitulated to the Nazis and have removed, you won't believe this one, have removed all references to race from the story of Rosa Parks.
Oh, yeah, I wrote. How do you tell this story?
You tell me. It is central. What's the story? A woman got on a bus.
And then they made her move, and she refused to move. So they arrested her. So why? Yeah. Was it because she was a woman?
How do you even... And this is because Florida has a law that bans material. And this is in the law that might make a white student, feel anguish or guilt.
No, some parent got the Walt Disney movie of Ruby Bridges, which the 6-year-old girl, it's a Walt Disney.
I don't know what, I saw that, but I don't know what Ruby Bridges is.
That's the name of the little girl that was escorted into school.
Oh, yes, the little, that in that
so they made a Disney movie out of it.
Yeah.
And we're showing it to second graders, and which is apparently they normally did, and a parent protested, and they're going to not show it again because it might make white children think that white people were mean to black people,
which is true.
That we were mean to children, which is true. That we called them the N-word.
Can you imagine having a law, which Florida does, which says
you can't tell the truth
to tell the truth to children in school?
Well, here's the thing. These people sit around, they lie about everything. I'm going to start screaming about Santa Claus and the effing tooth fairy. That's fine. Tell your kids that Santa Claus exists. Tell your kids that the tooth fairy pays you for your teeth falling out. But heaven forbid you should tell them that your grandfather donned a hood and tortured little black children.
It's just beyond belief. We've got a caller. Hello.
I find it very interesting that the same group of people who roll their eyes when they talk about being sensitive to others, and now they're worried about their children's self-esteem. But if you mention self-esteem in any other context, oh, don't give me that psychobabble shit. What the hell are they doing?
Jerks. Right. And, the other thing, Roger, exactly true.
I was thinking that today. It's blowback.
Is that they used to call us, right, snowflakes, right? Who does snowflakes?
We were so busy giving our children safe places so that they didn't have to hear anything that upset them, that the wrong people decided that their children deserve safe spaces too. So I'd just like to point out that we started this. We started this idea of censorship. We started this idea of not listening to opposing points of view.
Well, I don't know if we started it. You're saying it exists on both sides of the spectrum and always has. People trying to suppress ideas that make them angry or feel unsafe. What?
Sorry, that was a speaker on my. I ignore that. I apologize.
Okay.
Somebody.
Okay,
talk.
who's gonna? I know.
Roger, talk.
I was gonna ask Susan. I would like an example of how the liberal side has tried to shut down other people in an equal amount that they're just shutting out.
Well, I can tell you of experiences of things that are happening in college classes.
Susan, wait. Just let me say, Roger. Right now at the University of Pittsburgh, it's a huge story. The Pitt kids are practically in the streets because 3 were considered transphobic speakers. I have been asked to various events at Pitt. The place is practically paralyzed by it. People are at each other's throats because they don't want. Now, this is coming from, obviously, I talked to a friend who works there, the queer community at Pitt. But
I got the
okay. So what happened? Here's what I want to know: what happened to the idea of allowing ideas to be thrown into the mix and then responding to them, as opposed to not letting somebody even open their mouths? I don't understand. And at a university, which is where you go to be exposed to uncomfortable ideas. Otherwise, why go to school at all? Why learn anything?
Maybe I'm misunderstanding what the two of you are saying as far as the ACLU for years has said, they were giving rights to the KKK. They are allowed to protest. So I find it very one-sided. I got the impression that Susan was saying, for years, the liberals have been trying to prevent this type of conversation or these type of books and this type of thing. And I don't see that. I don't see that. They may disagree and things, but
no. Well, I know what you're saying, but I'm telling you that it has that different groups, different interest groups, if you want to call it that, different issue groups, don't want it discussed any way except the way they want it discussed. And it becomes very difficult for anyone not a member of that group to speak at all without being shouted down or labeled or something else. I think that the people on the left are just as guilty of having the right speech and the right thing, and you can only speak this way, and it's our own code, just like on the right. And we might like we might like our code better, but I think that it's what we are seeing happening in Florida is really no different than students of color or queer students, saying you can't talk about this way or that way.
Wait. When students of color were in the streets and trying to affect, these changes, it resulted in civil rights legislation.
Right.
Well, on the right now, the legislation that's being produced is banning books.
That's
banning speech.
Right.
So at least our side, when we get legal, there is no parallel there, because but this inability to listen to uncomfortable,
to opposing views,
thought is insane, and it is antithetical to everything that allows a democracy to exist or a community to exist.
I think we're talking about related things, but different things. So what Florida is doing is different from what you and Susan just said, because Florida is making it law. They're jamming, this stuff.
No, wait, Roger. It was made law that a bigot had to, no matter what the bigot thought, it was made law that a bigot had to rent, let's say, an apartment to a black person, right? So that was law coming from our side that had an impact on people who totally disagreed.
Wow, I think we're getting into some really weird territory here, because I agree, none of us, we want to shout down the other side, no matter which side of the issue you fall. But I do not see how it's equal and germane, or how that the bigot should be able to be a bigot and these guys should be able to ban books. I think we're talking two different.
We are talking two different things.
Yes,
we don't disagree. But what I am saying is what the right is doing is a reflection of what they saw in the left. And
they didn't need us to teach them. Their impulse to repress.
Oh no! I mean, their impulse to be hateful is simply there. That's right.
You can't blame it on. I think, can't we all agree that on both sides of the political spectrum there is a group, and they're a minority group on both sides
that always takes it too far.
They're loud and they have power, and they always go too far. That
you think the left has more control? You think the left has as much control of the Democrats as the far right has of the Republicans?
No,
I don't think so.
No,
for sure not.
We're too big a bent. No,
I get really aggravated that we can't tell you why Rosa Parks was arrested, or that Hank Aaron, his biography can't be read unless it's approved, because his biography includes his tough road going from the Negro Leagues to getting into the majors and having to travel separately in different hotels. I mean, I read that when I was 9 years old. He had a biography out when he was I was 9 years old.
Sure.
And he was still playing, but that was impactful to me. Now, maybe that distorted my sense of the world, and it probably messed me up permanently, I guess. I don't know. But these are
or it taught you empathy and a desire to do better. That's the thing that I never get. How can they not? How do you expect to learn if you're only taught lies? I mean,
well, okay, guys, this is making my head hurt.
Me too.
Okay, goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Bye, Roger.
Bye-bye. Have a good day.
Yeah, bye.
I'm just, to me, we spent so many years with the two of us having conversations where you would be yelling about, I don't know, how many different letters there were in the LBGTQ, and then you got used to that. Then it was pronouns, but your sense of dis-ease, about what it was proper to say and what it was, and your annoyance at being told.
I was very annoyed
at the rule shift.
What to say?
Right.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm talking about. I mean, we've been pushed around by a lot of people telling us that everything that we've been doing is wrong and everything we've been thinking is wrong, and it's all of us.
Well, as I say, I have said a million times, I don't like anybody on the right or on the left telling me what I can say and what I can't.
And what you can think and what you can't.
It just drives me insane.
Right.
It drives me fucking nuts.
Okay, exactly.
Okay. So, Susan, I have been having arguments with robots lately.
Oh, God, I refuse. I actually told one in writing that I did not talk to bots. And
Well, then you're not going to be able to have any customer service. I already bored the audience last week with my thing with Grubhub where I told them to go F themselves and I don't care and go to hell. And I just had another one the other day. This was with a bank. And it said that I wanted to know if I could use my card at an ATM machine without paying the bank a fee for getting my own money out. And I must have gone back and forth with this thing a million times without them telling me. And I finally said, does it cost me money? Question mark, exclamation point, question mark, exclamation point. And the bot said, I'll never charge you for anything we talk about, although we can both agree my jokes are priceless. An emoji smiling person. And I thought, what? What jokes? Then they offered more questions, how, and gave me questions that they were willing to answer. And I wrote back, give a person a job, unplug yourself. And they wrote, I didn't quite understand. Can you try asking that in a different way? And you'll have a stroke. You get so enraged. They say, please ask me in a different way. That helps me learn. And I wrote back, I don't want you to learn. I'm sick of machines like you trying to pretend you're simply a helpful human being. And then the helpful human robot being said, to get the help you need, connect with a bank representative here. And sent me finally to, I guess, customer service, which I didn't bother with. I am so fucking sick of this stuff. And it'll only get worse.
Generally, when you use your debit card in a bank that is your...
It's not a debit, it's a credit.
Oh.
Oh, no, you're right. It's a debit. I want to get money out.
Yes. Well, if it's a debit card for the same institution whose ATM it is.
No, but it's not. No, it's not.
Well, then generally, if you're in a fairly reputable institution, you will be charged at the ATM and refunded at your bank.
All right.
Okay. I mean, they take it out and they put it back in. So.
Yeah. Okay. Here's Kurt sent something in. He said, this is a meme I liked the other day. Calling bigotry an opinion is like calling arsenic food. Well, yeah. But you know what was I saying this the other day? I was saying, I know I was saying it to some people. I don't know if I said it to you. It is getting increasingly difficult to have a conversation. The art, who knew it was an art, of conversation is in danger. Because the minute you say, I mean, just the other night I said something just blah, 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 directed at my son. It was starting up a conversation. And he said, oh, well, that's why, in other words, he immediately took what I was saying as the beginning of an argument. And I said, no. I don't want to argue with you. I want us to exchange
views.
Views. It's called a conversation. You have had fewer of them than I, not just because you're younger, but because you live now in a culture that actually doesn't do it anymore. We simply scream at each other. And I really want people to try desperately to remember how to converse, to say something, to have somebody say something back in a normal tone of voice, which might totally disagree with what you just said, and then not to come back with a howitzer, but to then say something else. That's called a conversation. I don't think we know how to do it.
Well, it's a fairly scary thing to do. Because if you attempt it with someone that, is going to jump down your throat.
But that's generally what people do now.
Right.
We all do. I know I do. I can do that very quickly. But being aware of it, I think, is maybe the first step to pulling back, at least on an individual level, to not do it. But I had something here, Susan. I wanted to. This has to do again, just back to a school thing, not a school, a young person thing. The governor of Utah the other day signed a bill,
mm-hmm.
and it is the first law in the country, state law, that will prohibit social media companies from allowing users under the age of 18 to have an account without the explicit consent of a parent or guardian. Now, I don't know that
How are they going to police that, one wonders?
I don't know. I understand why they want to do it. I mean, every mental health professional says the kids are just being destroyed by sitting, scrolling through, and it says it will also require social networks to give Utah parents, I'm not sure about this, access to their children's posts, messages, and responses. And it will require the social media services to block minors from accessing their accounts from 10:30 p.m. to 6:30 a.m. That would be a default setting that only a parent could override. And it is intended to address everyone agrees, mental health crisis among American teenagers, as well as protecting younger users from child exploitation and bullying.
Yeah.
Well, I don't. What do you mean? Yeah.
I just think the whole thing. First of all, I mean, the first problem with all of this is half the parents wouldn't know what to do, and the children will show them how to block them, and therefore will know how to unblock them. I mean, the only ones that know how this stuff works are these people's kids.
So, yeah, I understand that. But, California also is working on a law. A number of other states are.
It's easier than regulating the social media, which is what they need to do. How about requiring the social media for being responsible for what's up on their airwaves? They're not airwaves. Well,
you say airways or airwaves.
Waves.
We had this conversation before.
Waves.
Airwaves.
Yeah.
But that's not true for computers, isn't it?
No, but I mean it in the metaphorical sense.
Oh, okay. What? Okay, I'm being told we have two callers. So, all right, let's get to them. Hello?
Hello.
Hello.
You were talking about trying to interact with robots before. I just had a funny story I wanted to tell you. I used to have Xfinity for my internet service. And I find their customer service to be the most frustrating of any company at all. So I used to scream, "Get me a fucking person, somebody who knows how to fuck." I had the computer tell me, "We don't deal with people who use that language." And it would hang up on me.
So did you, yeah, I'm sure they get screamed at all the time. Did you say, really, you said, "Get me a fucking person, get me somebody who can actually fuck"? You didn't say that.
I do.
You did?
Absolutely. I've done it multiple times. It doesn't matter. I'm not talking to a person. It doesn't matter. Well,
yeah, right, exactly. I feel the same. Oh, you hurt that poor robot feeling.
The nerve of me.
You're right, and it's not in any way indicative of how you might treat an actual person. At least until you're about 45 minutes into a totally useless conversation.
Right.
Thank you for that.
That's
Good
all.
luck to us all. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye. Okay. Hello. Hello.
Good morning, ladies. Ray from Lawrenceville here. How are you both?
Hi,
We're
Ray.
fine.
We're fine.
Good. Hey, I know I'm backing up a little bit, but I'm listening a little behind, but I wanted to agree with the original assessment that that the left has taught the right in many ways about this censorious refusal to listen to other side's arguments, and a lot of this is blowback. It's purposely designed to say, "We'll play that game too if you want."
Does anyone ever call in here and agree with me?
Hey, listen,
I'm thoroughly enjoying it
myself. I edit calling in because I know some of the things that I would like to propose an argument for will meet with such bent.
Yeah. Well, sure. Of course.
I stop talking, and it's the worst thing we can do is to stop talking.
Right. But we should try to not be particularly provocative in the way we.
No, but it's hard. Well, so here, here's an example. An old family friend who is dearly beloved is sitting on the couch, and out comes of the mouth of such friend a clearly Fox News Trumpist kind of opinion or version of events. And I find myself desperately trying to figure out whether I should A, ignore it, B, nod sagely, or C, say, that's really not what happened. And
all of those would be reasonable responses.
In this case, I did try to go with C, but I was terrified that even, though I tried to do it in a nice way, it was seen as a reprimand and a watch what you say in this house.
Well, I think then that person needs to deal with that. But I mean, I think the wrong response would be to leap up and say, "Get out. Never darken my door."
Well,
again.
That's the wrong response. Yes.
That I wouldn't do. Right.
No, but the idea that our side has not been captured by the far left more or equally than the right has been captured by the far right, if that made any sense.
Yeah.
It depends on where you're at. Go into a university setting. Go to Go to San Francisco. But those are California is a huge section, a huge part of the mechanism that drives the agenda for our political party.
Well, they're having their own blowback.
Absolutely, and it's inevitable. But when I find myself among almost like-minded people censoring what I say because one out of 18 there might grasp their pearls and fall over, something's gone wrong. Yeah. All right?
Yep. I know.
So I wanted to take this opportunity to call up and agree with something instead. Right?
Yeah, and it had the absolute, additional plus of aggravating the crap out of my sister. So I really liked that.
Shut up. All right. Thank you, Ray.
All right, thank you. I love Tuesdays. Thank you.
Okay, bye. Tuesdays. What's wrong with a Wednesday? You trying to make Wednesday feel bad? Days. Hey. A quick obit that I just found fascinating. It's local. It's a woman I met long ago because she was the head of, she was the mouthpiece for UPMC, the huge hospital chain that owns Pittsburgh. And unlike them, she was, a lovely person. I remember always thinking what a lovely person she was. And I was shocked to see that she had died. Well, because she's, of course, younger than me. An awful lot of people are dying who are younger than me, and I want it to stop. Anyway, her name is Jane Duffield. And so she was on the news constantly for 30 years. She was the director of the news bureau for UPMC. She was the chief spokesperson, the crisis communications manager, and she was brilliant at it. And I was blown. I lost touch with her. She retired in 2006 when she was 55. And this is what blew me away, what she did. So after being the mouthpiece for the evil empire, she went off to Union Theological Seminary in New York City. And she ended up with a divinity degree and was ordained a minister in the Presbyterian Church. She served at the Chevy Chase Presbyterian Church in Washington for 4 years, and she had a huge impact in other churches. So, I mean, think of a person who had that high-level corporate job and did it so well, but still having to, I would think things that were troubling sometimes, right? And then she gets out well before she had to and goes off and becomes a minister. And that's what she did up until the day she died. Don't you think that's an interesting turn in life?
Mm-hmm.
And you just wonder about the depth of a person and what's really going on in a person. You don't realize you don't know. You just don't know people. And then I know. And then whatever. There was another one today that I liked just because I like the way this guy looks. He looks like he should play Santa Claus. And it said that he had a big corporate job with a conservation group here. And then he dropped that and took up motivational speaking by portraying Theodore Roosevelt. And I'm looking at his picture and thinking, yeah, you look like Theodore Roosevelt.
Probably one too many person said, you look like Teddy Roosevelt. And he decided to do it. Yeah.
He made a career out of it. He was hired to speak at companies, conservationist groups, because Teddy was into conservation.
Well, he was the maker of the National Park System.
Right. Mostly so he could kill hunt
animals. So he could go
But
hunting.
it doesn't matter. And this guy ends up filming a documentary in the Amazon and totally into outdoors and nature, loved foraging for leeks and morels, and took great pride in his forest-to-table cooking style. And so I'm just reading, this is just a guy. I'm reading that and thinking, how wonderful. And it says this: immediate family will be celebrating his life privately. He loves spending time in the woods, so in his memory, consider taking a walk outside, observing the sights and smells of spring, and notice that the time is now. Isn't that lovely?
Yeah, quite beautiful. A really nice, a very, very, very nice piece in honor of.
Yes, indeed. So, all right. So there's one less Teddy Roosevelt impersonator on the loose.
Well, pretty soon Teddy will be blotted out of our history for one reason or another. He will.
Well, there's plenty of reason. He was a racist.
Yeah, yeah.
They all were. Well, I don't know. We cannot blot it out, okay? Jeez, we just gotta live with it and get better, be better, learn from it. God, the people wanting to blot. Well, no, let's not go there. It gets, my head starts to scale.
Well, right, because, here, I'm sitting here thinking about, how we just removed all the Confederate statues.
Confederate statues, that's what I thought, too. Well, our hands...
I mean, it does make your head hurt.
Right.
Right,
that's what I was about to start saying. We cannot erase it, and I'm thinking, wait, all those statues.
Well, in my own defense, I thought those things should go someplace where they could be put in context.
Maybe. And sometimes they are. But I think they're right to take them down because they were in places of honor.
No, and they were put up to threaten.
Public square.
With the ones that were put up in the 1950s were flat out put up to threaten black people.
To intimidate and scare black people.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so thank you so much. Good luck to you.
Thank you.
Maybe let me know how it goes.
Okay.
Okay. And,
okay.
I'll be back tomorrow.
Okay. All right.
Wednesdays, folks. Maybe it's not as good as Tuesdays, but it'll suffice.
Just call her up and tell her how much you miss me.
Get out of here.
Bye.
Okay. Bye. Bye.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.